Hello everybody, welcome to Tinman Elite's YouTube channel. My name is Reed Fisher. I'm a professional marathoner for Tinman Elite and Adidas. Today we're going to talk through my race at the 2024 Chicago Marathon. So if you are familiar with our channel, a couple weeks ago we did a breakdown video of what my training looked like before the race, and now we're kind of going to do the reflection on the race itself, talk through how that training got me through race day, how I felt about the race itself, and what I've been doing since. So let's dive in. Before the race itself, I got to Chicago a handful of days beforehand. I always like to do that. It's nice to just get settled in the city, kind of feel the energy and get in the routine of being in a hotel and eating the meals out instead of at home, rather than the night before the race getting in. It's a couple days, so your body just has time to adjust. So did that. My first few runs in Chicago, as always, if you are used to traveling for a race, you feel kind of flat and you're not overly poppy. I've just learned over the course of my career, you gotta be good at putting that up on the shelf and saying, doesn't matter how my legs feel, I can go have a good race. Going into race day itself, I felt pretty good. My legs were, again, not like the poppiest they've ever been, but I've ran races where I've felt incredibly poppy the day before and ran horribly, and I've ran races where my legs have felt dead before and I felt incredible and ran a PR. So with that in mind, one of the cool things about the Chicago Marathon as a pro is that you're right in the hotel that's right by the start line. So you take a really short bus ride the morning of to the elite tent, where you get to warm up around this little park, and there's some citizen runners and some local elites warming up in that same area. So the energy is always pretty cool. You're warming up as the sun's rising, and just kind of the energy of the day really starts to hit you, because everyone's getting excited about the race. The city's waking up, as are you. And from there, you walk from the elite tent along the first corral, the first wave of the race, and everybody there is cheering for you and is super psyched to see some of their favorite runners walk by. And for us as professional athletes, it's just really cool to see the thousands and thousands of people that are going to be following in our footsteps over the course of the race. So that then brings you to the start. You get held at the start line, as anybody knows, for way too long. You go stir crazy, and then eventually the gun goes off, and everything kind of fades into the bliss and the focused chaos of the first 5K of a marathon. If you've ran Chicago before, you'll know that the first 5K in Chicago, you can kind of throw your GPS watch out the window, because you're running underground for about a half mile and then through some of the skyscrapers. So it's really important just to kind of feel things out. The group that I was working with, we had a pace setter, and the pace setter also didn't have GPS signal, so it was, I think all of us were kind of like, this feels fast, but we don't want to be too slow, so let's just roll with it. And we came through the first 5K definitely a little quick, and at that point my legs weren't feeling super solid, and I was just kind of feeling a little overwhelmed, to be honest, just by the amount of crowd noise and being back in a race environment for the first time in a bit. Sometimes it just feels more chaotic than focused. The first half marathon of this race, honestly, for me was some of the most not confident I felt in some of my marathon races, which was a unique experience. Usually I feel really good, especially early on. You know, a lot of times we think the first half marathon of a marathon, you feel like you're just kind of out for a hard long run. For me, the first half of this, for whatever reason, just felt mentally and physically, I wasn't super connected to how I wanted to feel, and wasn't feeling super strong. For me, this race in and of itself was a great learning experience, and that was one of the things that was a new experience for me, that was a challenge to feel not so great early on and have to compartmentalize. Okay, you've got 20 miles of racing left and you don't feel great, but get over it because you've got 20 miles of racing left. That was interesting. It was mostly Americans in the group that I was working with, and the goal was to come through the half marathon split in around 64:30 was what we were shooting for. We ended up being quite a bit under pace for that through 10K. So around 10 to 15K, me and a handful of other Americans kind of faded off the back of that pace setters American group, because it just felt too hard too soon, and we knew that we were running more like 207, 208 pace instead of 208, 209 pace, and we knew that it was probably in our best interest to just back off a bit. And that was, I think, my slowest 5K split of the race was 15 to 20K. It was kind of like, okay, if I'm gonna get home with any sort of a result that I'm proud of, I might need to really hold myself back here and be smart. Came through the half marathon in almost exactly 64:30, and we were about 20 seconds back of the pace setting group that we'd originally planned to go with. From there on, it was me and Charlie Sweeney, who's another Boulder runner, and then Colin McCow, who's a local Chicago legend. So the three of us had kind of made our little pack of the three of us. We rolled with that from basically mile 10 to about mile 15. For this race, for the first time, we've got a Tinman Elite COROS band, and so for the first time in a race, I got to check my splits, and every time I would look down at my pace, I would have a reminder of the team and the logo and my teammates and coaches that I'm running for, but also everyone who supported the team, and a good reminder that, hey, it's not just me out here, you know, when I'm going through a rough patch. And I look down at my watch and I see the strap with our logo on it. It's just a nice kind of tonic, wakes you up a little bit, and all of a sudden you're reminded of who and why you're running. And it's a lot of fun to be able to do this alongside COROS, to release this kit with the team's logo on it. COROS was the first sponsor I ever had as an elite runner. They stepped in and helped me pay the bills way back in 2019 when I was still a white-eyed and bushy-tailed kid who was new to the game. So now, 5 years later, to be releasing a band kit alongside COROS and seeing, all the athletes that they've released kits with, really just an honor for the team to be included in some of these special releases and be featured alongside those huge names in the sport. Yeah, been a really special thing to have this on my wrist in training, but especially out there on race day. So the kit will release November 7th on the COROS site. So if you want to get a kit and rep the team and experience the same thing I got to experience in Chicago, of taking a glance down and being reminded of the team, and maybe to work a little harder and put your head down and get after it, go pick one up and let us know. Fortunately, at about mile 15, I kind of got a nice pep in my step that came out of nowhere, and I think anyone, again, who's raced a marathon, or if you haven't, this is me telling you for the first time maybe, that the marathon is just all about weathering the highs and lows of the race. You're going to have so many bad patches, so many good moments, but just doing your best to be mentally resilient, whether that bad patch lasts a minute or an hour. You still have to just commit to the job ahead of you and commit to the training that you've been doing and try and honor that on the race. From mile 15 on, I started working off the front of Colin and Charlie, and was able to start kind of gaining ground on the guys who'd been ahead of me early on in the first half marathon, and started to see them coming back to me, which is always a really just confidence instilling thing, to feel like you're executing well and people are fading, but you're moving up. From about 16 to 23, I think I caught probably 5 or 6 guys total, and moved up into, kind of the top 15 and top handful of Americans. And at that point, I got to mile 23, and Coach Mark and Joan were both at mile 23 and 24, and it was really good to see them. At that point, I felt like I'd kind of caught everyone that I was maybe going to caught, and then it was just a solo grind to the finish, and I was kind of ready to just be like, okay, just put it in cruise control and get it done, and just don't blow up, but don't go crazy in this last 5K, and both of them being there was kind of a good shock to the system, and be like, no, you still got to race this thing. You can't just, coast it in from here. You want to get as many seconds on the clock as you can. Coach Mark was there at 23 and yelled at me, sub 210 still doable. And I looked down at my watch and I was like, I don't know about that. If I'd wanted to run sub 210, I would have had to close in like 4:42s for my last 2 or 3 miles, which felt a little unrealistic at the time. At that point, I was like, okay, sub 210 might not be realistic, but I can try and get home as quick as I can and make sure that I'm sub 210:30 and have a nice big PR to walk away from the day with. Shortly after passing Coach Mark, probably around 24 and a half, was able to see Shadrach Kipchirchir, who was one of the other American athletes ahead of me still. And so at that point, I was like, cool, I'm going to catch all those people before the end of the race. So eyes up, just stare at their backs and work on shrinking that gap. So yeah, came home, 2:10:14. It was a 40-second PR from Boston a couple years ago. So to me, the race itself, if I had to give myself like a letter grade, I would say it was like a B. I was happy with it. It's always good to be better and faster than you've ever been on a race day, but going into the race, I really wanted to run closer to 2:09:30, but kind of the B goal at the time felt like 2:09:59, so to be close to that, but on the wrong side of the 2:10 barrier was a little bit disappointing. Just that first half marathon, I didn't feel great or confident, and so just having the mental resilience to work through that and have a great back half and be catching guys and not just kind of sell myself short was a big mental win. So while the time may not be the huge leap forward that I'd hoped it was going to be, a great step in the right direction. And what's cool about the marathon, even at this level as an elite and a pro, and you still take away something new and you learn something about yourself and about the distance at every race. The time isn't maybe quite as reflective of the jump that I feel like I made both in training during this build and just mentally on race day, the amount that I will be able to carry forward from this race. But again, I'm really happy with 40-second PR, and I don't want to minimize that in any way because I'm faster than I've ever been, which is a great place to be. That is my recap of the Chicago Marathon. Like I said, a really nice step forward, a race that I'm proud of, but I don't think a race that will probably, hopefully, define my career. And I don't think I'll look back on this one in maybe a couple years and have it be a lifetime best. But yeah, a good step forward, a race I'm proud of, and all in all, a fun experience. So thanks to Chicago for the opportunity, and thanks to all of you for watching.